Hello and welcome to this video series that looks at the 2023 WADA Social Science Research Grant Program. This is the first video in a series designed to help applicants or potential applicants to the grant program navigate and support you to make a submission. This video will go through the overview and structure of the grant program, as well as give some background to the Social Science Research Program. There will also be other videos that you'll see, short videos on the application process, some tips and guidance as well for potential applicants to consider as they develop their submissions. And there's also short videos on regional considerations, specifically for Latin America, Africa, and Asia. And those are available in different languages also. To begin with some background to the grant program, which has been running since 2005. And since that time, we have received over 800 applications to the grant program. We have funded 136 projects looking at a variety of different topics. And to those projects, we have allocated $4.5 million US. So what we're looking at overall is funding about 1 in 6 projects that have applied to the program. And what's interesting about this figure is that this has actually come down since 2020 when we launched our social science research strategy. So since then, since 2020, we're funding between 1 in 4 and 1 in 5 applicants to the program. And that's maybe down to how we've restructured the program that I'll also talk about. We've also seen an increase in funding to the program since the launch of the strategy. And of the $4.5 million that has been allocated, almost 1 million of that has been allocated in the last 2 years. So as I mentioned, the social science research strategy, which was launched in 2020, this is available on our website for people to review, so I won't go through in too much detail. But the focus is going beyond the grant program as an overall strategy in looking to increase the visibility of social science research and looking to support the translation of research and research findings into practice and policy. And we have identified 6 key strategic priorities within the social science research strategy, and the grant program still remains a core part of what we're trying to do and support. But it also goes beyond that. And what we've also looked to do is to, in a sense, decouple social science research from education and look to see how it can support and inform anti-doping programs more generally. Part of the first strategic priority about coordinating the research agenda was specifically about restructuring the grant program and publishing research priorities to give clarity to our stakeholders and potential applicants about what we're looking for when it comes to the grant program. So when we talk about the current structure, this was reviewed and restructured in 2020. When we reviewed the program, we saw that, and some feedback we got from applicants is that there was a lot of requirements for the applicants to fill out the application form, regardless of the size of the projects. So what we did is we divided the projects into 3 tiers. I'll give an overview of the profile of those tiers shortly. And we also divided the application process into 2 stages, particularly for larger projects. That way people can submit an expression of interest, and then WADA can review and give an indication of whether this is something that aligns to our research priorities, and those projects will then be invited to make a full submission. For smaller projects, then there's less requirements in terms of bureaucracy and the application form itself, hopefully making the overall program more efficient. So as I mentioned, the 3 tiers. Tier 1, generally the profile of these projects would be in the budget range of $75,000 to $150,000 US. And these projects are usually international projects with a number of different countries involved, a number of different sports. And they look at informing higher level topics such as international anti-doping policy. These projects go through the 2-stage application, expression of interest, and full application. For Tier 2, we're looking at usually a profile of budget between $20,000 and $75,000. These projects could be delivered at a national level in one country. It could be up to 2 or 3 countries sometimes, or it could be in one sport across a number of different countries. And these projects can sometimes look at the intervention level, where it may be looking at the effectiveness of a program or an intervention in terms of anti-doping or education. These would also follow a 2-stage application process from expression of interest, and then those that are invited would be then required to make a full application. For Tier 3 applications, usually smaller projects that are less than $20,000, and this is looking at seed funding for projects or pilot projects, or supporting possibly early career researchers who might not have that much experience as principal investigators. We also look at this potentially as supporting countries or regions that are traditionally underfunded as a way to increase investment in these areas. So overall, what we're trying to do, the goals that we have set and that we have done, is to set and publish research priorities that I will speak to in more detail shortly. And overall, what we're trying to do is increase research capability. As I mentioned, there are traditionally underfunded regions, which would be Latin America, Africa, and Asia. So we're looking at trying to increase the level of applications and funding going to these regions, as traditionally funding has gone to European countries. And of course, we're still open and welcome applications from everywhere, but we would be more proactive in encouraging projects and applications from these regions. We're also looking at supporting early career researchers in developing their experience and capability in anti-doping. And there is also a desire to see more disciplines or interdisciplinary research in the application process. Following the review, we noticed that there are some principles that we would like to see reflected in the applicants and the applications for the projects. That is, engagement of athletes in the research process, particularly those research projects that would look to engage athletes at some point in the future, whether they would be the end users of an intervention or in terms of policy that would ultimately affect them. We also saw from experiences that projects that involve anti-doping organizations from the outset and involve the co-production of the research were more successful, and that's something that we would very much encourage as part of the research process. We're also looking to reduce duplication. So this involves us looking across all of the different applications and also liaising with other international partners to ensure that the resources are being deployed effectively. A key part and a key principle that we're also looking to engender is around the dissemination of research, is that we want to go beyond a final report and see the research findings being employed to the end users, seeing anti-doping organizations using the research and making sure that it is informing practice and policy. So the research priorities that we are interested in, again, all of this information is in our guidance document on the website, but we start with the research priorities in terms of the level of influence on the athletes. There are 12 research priorities, and there are 2 priorities at each level, starting with the athlete, where we're interested in the experience that athletes have with the anti-doping system in terms of how we can make it more effective. We are ultimately interested in the behaviors that athletes are doing and how we can support athletes to do the things that will help prevent doping. So as we move away from this, we are also interested in those that influence the athletes. So that's the athlete support personnel, looking at the role and the influence that they have, and also their experience in the system. Moving further out then is we still want to maintain an interest in education programs. So what we have lacked is some evidence around the effectiveness of education programs, and there is still a strong interest in examining that. And also the people that are working within anti-doping. We're seeing an increased investment in the training of anti-doping professionals. So there is a desire to see the effectiveness that this is also having. And then as we work further out, overall within the World Anti-Doping Program, there is a desire to look at the policy impact that the World Anti-Doping Program is having. And then the overall sport environment. Obviously, sport policy and the evolution of sport practices like technology has an influence potentially on the behavior of athletes. So examining these different topics is also of interest. And then within each country or within each sport, there's also overall influences and even non-sport influences that occur that we would be interested in seeing those explored. And there's also possibly interest from other industries like the tobacco industry or alcohol industry where learnings could be transferred and something that could be examined as part of our research priorities. So overall, in terms of the timeline and the review process, the expressions of interest for tiers 1 and 2, the deadline is the 21st of November, and all applicants should be in there and submitted through WADA grants. What happens then is that our social science research expert advisory group will review those expressions of interest, those that are deemed to have potential to be successful in the full application process will be invited to do so before the 20th of December. The full application deadline then is the 30th of January. And for tier 3 projects, the full application is just one application for the 30th of January 2023. What happens then is that each tier 1 and tier 2 project will go through a peer review process, and WADA's Social Science Research Expert Advisory Group will also review each application and then meet to discuss and make recommendations to WADA's Education Committee in March or April 2023. And all projects will be approved in May 2023 by WADA's Executive Committee. All applicants will then be informed of the decisions following this, and feedback is available if required on the applicant's overall submission. So again, if all of the information that you want is in guidance documents on our website, the grant application process can be accessed directly through grants.wada-ama.org. And if anyone has any questions, you can contact us at ssor@wada-ama.org. Thank you for your attention.